Hey, my name is Daphne. And somewhere between the moment she slapped me and the seconds it took her to realize who I was, a part of me that had been buried for 17 years clawed its way to the surface. This wasn't just any flight. It was the first time I was heading back to the city that once watched me disappear. A private meeting in New York brought me here, but the timing felt like fate, or a cruel cosmic joke. I didn't book this flight to stir ghosts, but they boarded anyway. I took my seat in 2A, first class. Window seat. Quiet. Just like I liked it. The navy blue suit I wore hugged my shoulders like armor. It wasn't for show, it was survival. A tool that said, "Don't ask me where I came from. Ask me where I'm going." The hum of the engines, the low chatter, the clink of ice in glasses. It was all routine. Until she appeared. Clarissa. Sharp angled cheekbones, that signature red lipstick she used to steal from Mom's drawer. Her dark hair was wound into a bun so tight it might have hurt. And that smile. That performative, wide hostess smile she'd practiced since high school pageants. Perfect for strangers. Deadly to me. She didn't flinch. Didn't pause. She looked right at me and saw no one. "Excuse me, miss," she said, her tone clipped, performative. "I need to verify your ticket." I handed it over without a word. She glanced at it, then frowned. "This must be a mistake. Seat 2A was flagged for a priority guest." Her eyes flickered to my face again, but nothing clicked. "I'm the guest," I said calmly. "I'll need to check with the front. Just step into the galley and—" "No," I said. She blinked. "I'm sorry?" I said no. I'm not moving. A hush fell around us. Two passengers across the aisle exchanged glances. A businessman nearby turned his head slightly, curious. Clarissa's professional smile flickered. "Ma'am, if you don't comply, I'll have to ask security." I raised an eyebrow. "You're going to call security on me? In front of all these people?" Her voice rose. "You're not listed as a corporate partner. Your name isn't cleared for this seat." "Yes, it is." She stepped forward, shoulders squared. "Then prove it." "You want me to prove I belong in this seat?" She nodded, smug. "That's right." There was a pause, long enough for every first-class passenger to feel the tension bleeding into their champagne. I leaned in just slightly and said it softly enough that only she could hear. "Still the same, Clarissa. Still picking people out of rooms like weeds in your garden." She froze. Her eyes narrowed, her lips parted. And then she slapped me. Hard, sharp, like instinct. The sound rang out louder than the intercom. Gasps, murmurs. A woman in 2C covered her mouth. Clarissa looked like she'd just electrocuted herself. Her eyes widened. Her hand hovered in the air, trembling. And then, like a switch flipped, recognition dawned. "Daphne?" I didn't blink. "Hello, Clarissa." She stepped back. You can't be." "Oh, but I am." The silence was suffocating. Not just hers, but mine. The kind that had lived in my chest since the day she threw me out of the house. Since the day she told our parents I was a thief, a liar, a disappointment. Her voice cracked. I didn't recognize you." "No," I said. "You never really looked at me." Clarissa vanished down the aisle, and for the first time since I boarded, I allowed myself to exhale. The seat was still warm from her presence. My cheek stung, but not nearly as much as the old wounds did. Wounds that never got stitched, just layered over with grit and time. The woman beside me leaned in. "Was that your sister?" "Unfortunately," I replied, offering a polite smile. A man a few rows behind leaned forward, squinting. "Wait, are you Daphne Monroe, the founder of Crescent Shield?" I turned, surprised. "Yes." "I thought I recognized you. I saw you on Forbes. 30 under 30, right? You're the security tech woman." Clarissa had returned just in time to hear that. Her eyes darted to the man, to me, to my expensive suit, and the calm in my face that screamed, "You don't get to define me anymore." She stood frozen, mouth slightly open. "You're the woman who stopped that ransomware attack on the children's hospital," another passenger said. I nodded. "That was our team, yes." Clarissa's hands fell limp at her sides. She looked like someone who'd watched a ghost walk into the living room. And maybe she had, because I wasn't the sister she betrayed. I was what rose from the ashes of that betrayal. I stared out the window as the plane lifted off. The sky yawned wide with the pink light of evening. The clouds looked soft, but my insides twisted into knots. I hadn't planned on revenge. I hadn't planned to see her at all. But fate doesn't care about your itinerary. And sometimes the universe hands you a front row seat to your own reckoning. Scene break. Flashback. The day I left rain slammed against the windows that night. I still remember the way it sounded, like the world was trying to wash me off the earth. I was standing on the porch, duffel bag in one hand, soaked to the bone. Clarissa stood just inside the door, arms crossed, smirking. "You're lucky I don't call the cops," she said. "I didn't take your bracelet," I whispered. "I swear." But she'd already told our parents I did. Said she saw it in my room. Said I pawned it. Said I used the money to buy weed. None of it true. Mom didn't look at me. Dad just tossed my bag out. And that was it. I was gone. Not with a bang, but with the thud of my feet on wet pavement and the echo of a door slamming shut. Back in the present, the cabin lights dimmed. I ordered black coffee. No cream, no sugar. Just like always. Clarissa didn't return to my section again. Another flight attendant took over for her. Smart choice. The man who recognized me leaned over again. "I hope you don't mind me saying this," he said. "But that was intense." I shrugged. "It's been 17 years. He nodded slowly. "Must have been one hell of a 17 years. I gave a wry smile. "You have no idea." But he would. They all would. Because this wasn't just a slap. This was a match. And it had just hit dry wood. Some wounds don't fade. They sharpen. And when the day comes, they cut back. Rain has a memory. I don't know if science would back that up, but I swear the storm that soaked my shoes that night remembered me. It hit the windows like it was angry I had returned. 17 years ago, I stood at the edge of a porch I used to call home, staring through the glass of a locked front door. My duffel bag was soaked, my coat clung to my skin, and all I could see was Clarissa's silhouette on the other side. She didn't open it. She just watched. The truth is, I hadn't planned to revisit that night. I'd spent years packing it away, folding the memory so tightly it barely breathed. But after Clarissa slapped me in first class, after she realized who I was, that memory came back like it had teeth. It chewed through my calm on the flight. I didn't sleep. I just kept replaying her face. The panic, the fear, the guilt that arrived 20 years too late. And so, somewhere above Ohio, the past opened up. It had started 2 weeks before my 13th birthday. Clarissa had a way of owning space. At school, she was prom royalty without the crown. At home, she ran the house like she had inherited it. My parents weren't blind. They were just too tired to notice how often she rewrote the narrative, especially when it involved me. She was 17, I was the afterthought. That day, a bracelet went missing. Gold, with a pearl clasp. It had belonged to our grandmother. Clarissa cried when she discovered it was gone. Loud, dramatic sobs, all carefully staged in the kitchen, where Mom could see. "I left it on the bathroom counter," she wailed. "Daphne was in there this morning." Mom didn't ask. She didn't accuse. She just turned to me with eyes that already decided I was guilty. "Did you take it?" she asked flatly. "No," I whispered. "I swear." Clarissa looked at me like I was a stranger. "Don't lie. I saw you looking at it." Dad came home that evening with fire in his step. "There was money missing from my wallet, too," he said. That wasn't true. But truth didn't matter anymore. Clarissa had set the scene, and the rest was just performance. That night, I was told to pack my things. No trial, no real questions. "You've been acting strange lately," Mom said, folding her arms. Maybe time away will help. Dad didn't speak. He just stared at the TV while I zipped my duffel bag. Clarissa leaned against the doorframe, her arms crossed. "Don't worry," she said sweetly. "It's not like it's forever." And then she smiled. The facility they sent me to was clean and gray and silent, a place for troubled girls. I wasn't troubled, I was discarded. The social worker's name was Melanie. She had kind eyes but always looked overworked. "No one's picking you up this weekend," she'd say on Fridays. "Maybe next time." There was never a next time. I sent letters. Hundreds. I used the fancy paper the center provided for therapy exercises. Carefully written, folded, stamped. I never got a reply. Years later, I found out why. Clarissa had intercepted the letters. She told my parents I didn't want contact, that I blamed them, that I was dangerous. And they believed her. She took my words and buried them. Just like she buried me. Back on the plane, the flight landed with a thud that jolted me out of memory. The city lights of New York blinked below like tiny lies. I stepped out of the cabin, heels clicking with purpose, but my heart still beat with thunder. In the back of the terminal, as I waited for my car, a memory slipped through. Clarissa, age 16, practicing her homecoming speech in front of the mirror. She had written it about grace and forgiveness. The irony hit hard. The driver opened the door of my black SUV. "Where to, Ms. Monroe?" "East 78th, I said. "And drive slow." He glanced at me in the mirror. "Rough flight?" I met his eyes briefly. "You could say that." The apartment I stayed in was technically a company asset, minimalist, secure, and mine when I needed it. I sank into the armchair by the window and stared at the skyline. My assistant, Naomi, texted. "Naomi, board meeting on Friday confirmed. Also, press requests are piling up after the photo from the flight." Me. "Let them pile, no comment." Naomi. "You okay?" Me. "I will be." I stared at those words longer than I should have. I will be. It was half a lie and half a prayer. Later that night, I opened an old email account I hadn't touched in years. I scrolled through draft messages, unsent letters, some to my mother, most to no one. One draft stopped me cold. It was dated 7 years ago. Subject: what if I never come back? Body: if I die before anyone remembers me, does that mean I never existed? I couldn't even remember writing it, but I remembered how it felt, like I was screaming into a cave that gave nothing back. The next morning, I stood in front of a brownstone I hadn't seen since the day I left. Same ivy climbing the bricks, same cracked stone path. I didn't knock. I didn't need to. I walked away before they could open the door and pretend I was never there. Because the next move wasn't theirs anymore. Some disappearances aren't accidents. They're orchestrations. And when you learn that, something in you decides to stop asking to be found. There was no dramatic sunrise the morning I left the facility. No string quartet playing while I reclaimed my life. Just a folded letter of good conduct, a box of state-issued toiletries, and a ride that never came. I walked 3 miles to the nearest bus station, lugging a backpack that was mostly empty. The girl who left Crescent home wasn't whole, but she was watching. Not dreaming, watching. I knew 2 things for sure. No one was coming to save me. I was going to save myself. The first year after that wasn't about success. It was about survival. I lived in a converted garage behind a nail salon in Queens. The woman who owned it, Lourdes, let me stay in exchange for scrubbing pedicure chairs and sorting dirty towels. I kept my head down, kept my secrets closer. At night, I taught myself to code using a battered laptop someone left behind in a cafe. I'd memorize lines of syntax on paper napkins, retype them during lunch breaks at the nail salon. Java, Python, HTML. The language of machines made more sense to me than the language of people. They say trauma rewires your brain. I believe it. Mine didn't just rewire, it reforged. One night, around 1:30 a.m., after 10 hours on my feet and another 3 debugging an endless loop, I hit send on a freelance job submission. It was a data cleaning gig for a small cybersecurity team called Lockpath. They offered me $200 and didn't ask for a resume. 3 weeks later, they offered me a full contract. "Who trained you?" the project manager asked me during our first call. I smiled into the cracked webcam. "Mostly failure." He didn't laugh. He just said, "Keep failing like that, and you'll own this company." But I didn't want to own someone else's company. By the time I was 22, I'd saved just over $19. I rented a space in Brooklyn the size of a storage closet and filed the paperwork for my LLC, Crescent Shield Technologies. The name wasn't just branding, it was rebellion. They may have tried to erase me at Crescent Home, but I built something out of the pieces they left behind. Building a startup sounds glamorous when it's featured in magazines. But no one writes about the nights you fall asleep on the office floor, the ramen meals 5 nights a week, the gut punch when investors smile and say, "Come back when you have a male co-founder." I pitched to 74 venture capitalists. 72 said no. The other 2 just asked if I was single. Still, I kept going. Because revenge, real revenge, isn't fire. It's patience. It's success delivered in silence. It's becoming everything they said you could never be, and then watching them blink when they realize they don't even deserve to know your name. 3 years into running Crescent Shield, I was invited to speak at DEF CON in Las Vegas. Me, Daphne Monroe, on stage, flanked by the same tech bros who once ignored my emails. "I didn't come here to prove I belong," I said to the crowd. "I came to build what they wouldn't let me inside." That speech went viral. Overnight, we gained 28,000 new clients. One of them was a battered women's shelter in Missouri. They'd been targeted by stalkerware, abusers trying to find the women they'd lost control of. Our team helped them scrub their systems, secure their devices, encrypt their records. They sent me a letter. "Because of you, 23 women slept peacefully last night. You didn't just protect data, you protected lives." I cried reading it. Not because of the words, but because, for the first time in my life, I felt like I wasn't invisible. I wish I could say I forgot Clarissa, that her name stopped echoing in the background like bad static. But trauma doesn't just vanish, it gets stored. It resurfaces, sometimes in dreams, sometimes in boardrooms, and sometimes, like last week, on a flight to New York, when your estranged sister slaps you across the face because she doesn't recognize the woman she helped disappear. "You're the CEO of Crescent Shield?" the man on the plane had asked, astonished. Yes, I was. But not just that. I was the child left behind, the teenager no one came for, the woman who built her worth from a codebase of rejection. Back in the present, I stood in front of the mirror in my New York apartment, staring at the woman staring back. Clarissa hadn't just slapped my face. She'd slapped the last 17 years of grit, growth, grief. I traced the fading redness on my cheek. Not from pain, from memory. And this time, I didn't flinch. Scene, first VC office, flashback. "I like your pitch," the investor said. "But let's be real. Cybersecurity is a boys' club." "I'm not here to join the club," I replied. "I'm here to lock the doors." He laughed. He didn't invest. His loss. Scene, phone call with Naomi. "Do you want me to push the media back again?" Naomi asked. "No," I said. "Let them talk." "What changed?" "I'm not hiding anymore." She paused. "That's new." "Yeah," I said. "It's about time." Scene, Daphne visits Lord's. I knocked on the door of the old nail salon, half expecting the place to be closed. Instead, Lord's opened it, apron still on, smelling faintly of acetone. "Daphne?" she gasped. I hugged her. "I told you I'd come back." Her eyes welled. "Micha, you came back with an empire." Sometimes the best revenge isn't a battle cry. It's showing up with peace in your chest and proof in your work. There are truths you don't stumble into. You hunt them. After the flight, after Clarissa's slap and the stunned silence that followed, I knew I couldn't just walk away anymore. The old part of me, the part that survived, built, and healed, wanted to let it go. But something newer and colder inside me whispered, if she buried you once, what's stopping her from burying you again? 2 days after I landed, I met with Elijah in a coffee shop off 42nd. Low lights, heavy wood tables, no Wi-Fi. He was the kind of man who never blinked at confidential requests. Digging up family skeletons? He asked, sipping his espresso. That's heavy. I need everything on Clarissa Monroe, I said. He paused. Legally? I didn't flinch. Legally useful. He raised an eyebrow, but nodded. You want paper trails or silence? Both, I said. One to confront her, one to bury her. He grinned. I like you already. The next weeks were spent reviewing folders that felt like minefields. Credit transfers, education records, old bank statements, birth certificates. What began as suspicion turned into confirmation. Clarissa hadn't just told lies. She forged them. The first twist came quietly. Elijah texted one morning. Need to meet, urgent. We met at a park bench, under the illusion of a casual chat. He handed me a folder with a single document inside. This is the intake form from the juvenile facility you were sent to. I scanned it. My name, my birth date. But the signature wasn't mine. I never saw this, I murmured. Exactly, Elijah said. Clarissa signed it. She listed herself as your legal guardian. My hands froze. She claimed your parents were overseas for work and that you were acting violently. I looked up. That's how she got them to take me without a court hearing? He nodded. She also filed a sealed incident report stating you attacked her. I never touched her. He gave me a long look. I believe you, but the state believed her. I stared at the paper, the false signature, the slanted handwriting I now remembered from old birthday cards she forged when Mom forgot. Elijah leaned in. She erased you on paper before she did it in person. The second twist hit deeper. Weeks later, Elijah found documentation from Clarissa's senior year, specifically her application to Brookstone College's prestigious arts program. She didn't get in, he said, but someone did. You. What? You were accepted. Full scholarship. I blinked. You wrote an essay about surviving childhood trauma and finding peace through sculpture. You submitted a portfolio. It blew them away. I never knew I applied. That's the point. She rerouted the acceptance letter, reapplied using your artwork and story. They thought she was you. I went silent. She used my trauma as a stepping stone? Not just used, Elijah said. She stole your life. I found myself back in my apartment that night, sitting in silence, lights off. The hum of the city like a lullaby from a world that never cared. I'd thought I was over it. I thought building my empire had rewritten my past. But success doesn't erase what was stolen. It only illuminates the absence. Later, I received something I hadn't expected. A voicemail, my father's voice. Daphne, I don't know if this is even your number. I saw the photo of you on the plane. You look like your mother. I'm sorry, we didn't know. That sentence broke something in me. Not because he didn't know, but because he hadn't tried to find out. Back in Elijah's office, I reviewed the final piece. A voice recording. She deleted voicemails from your mother's old phone, Elijah explained. I retrieved one from a backup server. He hit play. Daphne, if this finds you, I tried. I'm so sorry. Clarissa said you didn't want us, but I never believed her. Not really. I left the locket under the rosebush. Maybe one day. The message ended in static. I couldn't breathe. She'd tried. My mother had tried. And Clarissa had silenced her too. I booked a flight back to my hometown the next morning. No press, no entourage, no reason but one, to see the rose bush. It was still there, gnarled, overgrown, forgotten. I got on my knees and dug with my hands. The dirt was cold. The thorns bit. I didn't care. 15 minutes later, I found it. A tiny silver locket. Inside was a photo of me at 8 years old, and a note folded so small it could have been missed by the wind. You are loved. The final straw wasn't the lies. It was the choice. Clarissa had been given love and turned it into leverage. I'd been given silence and turned it into survival. But now I wanted something more dangerous than revenge. I wanted the truth, loud and public and permanent. There's a difference between being lost and being hidden. One deserves a search. The other deserves a reckoning. The ballroom glowed in warm gold, chandeliers dripping light like melted diamonds. Every guest who stepped into Clarissa's charity gala was met with champagne flutes and air-kissed greetings, cameras flickering from every corner. The signage outside read, Monroe Foundation Annual Gala for Women in Aviation. But I knew this wasn't about empowerment. It was a coronation. Her coronation. She had built an image so carefully, so pristinely curated over the years, that not even a crack was visible from the outside. Tonight, she would be honored by the mayor, photographed by Vogue, and announced as a nominee for the Board of Aviation Safety. She'd be immortalized in press and public favor. She had no idea I was coming. I arrived in black silk, no entourage, no speech prepared, just a small USB drive in my clutch, and the weight of 17 years balanced evenly across my shoulders. Naomi had reserved me a seat at table 4, just behind the press section. From that vantage point, I could watch everything unfold without interrupting it. Yet, the room buzzed with elegance. Waiters glided past with truffle canapés. A string quartet played Sinatra softly under the buzz of conversation. On stage, Clarissa stood radiant in a silver gown, her smile so poised it would fool anyone who didn't know better. Naomi leaned toward me. "Press knows you're here. They're waiting." "Let them," I said, eyes locked on Clarissa. It's her moment. She should enjoy the stage while it's still hers. 30 minutes in, the program began. The MC, a well-polished man in a navy tux, began introducing Clarissa. She has served over a decade in aviation leadership. She's trained over 500 flight attendants. She's the proud founder of the Monroe Foundation, which has helped dozens of women reclaim their wings after trauma. My jaw tightened. He continued. And tonight, we're not just honoring a leader, we're honoring a survivor. The screen behind him lit up with a pre-recorded video. Clarissa appeared, speaking earnestly. When I was young, I saw firsthand what silence can do to a woman's life. My sister struggled with mental illness. She withdrew from us, even rejected our family's help. It broke us, but I found a way to channel that pain into something beautiful. Into this. Lies, dressed in velvet. A murmur rippled through the crowd. Naomi squeezed my hand, but I had already let go. I stood. I didn't storm the stage. I walked. The MC blinked, confused. Clarissa's face turned pale the moment our eyes met. She faltered. A beat. Then 2. Her breath caught in her throat. I stepped in front of the microphone. The room fell into silence, like a shutter snapping closed. "Good evening," I began, voice calm. "Some of you may know me, most of you probably don't. I'm Daphne Monroe, founder of Crescent Shield Technologies. But more importantly, I'm Clarissa Monroe's sister, the one she claims was too broken to love, the one she erased." Gasps flickered through the crowd like sparks. Clarissa took a step forward. "Daphne, this isn't the time." "No, it's exactly the time." I turned slightly toward the crowd. I wasn't invited tonight, but when I heard my story was being told without me, I thought I should at least show up for the ending. The room was still. Even the press had stopped taking photos. I pulled the USB from my clutch and handed it to the AV tech beside the stage. "Play it!" The screen behind us shifted. Documents appeared, screenshots, voice memos, the audio recording of my mother's final message, her broken voice, the part where she whispered about hiding the locket. Faces in the crowd fell from admiration to confusion to horror. Then came the forged intake forms, with Clarissa's signature, the rerouted college acceptance letters, side-by-side comparisons of my essay next to the one Clarissa submitted under her own name. The final image was a photo of Clarissa and me as children, standing next to each other in front of a Christmas tree, her arm around me, her face already in performance mode. Clarissa whispered, "How dare you?" I turned to her. "You took everything, my name, my chances, my voice, and you dressed it up as philanthropy." "I saved this family," she hissed. "No, you silenced it." She stared back at me, trembling, the applause she expected that night echoing in reverse. A slow, collective realization moving through the crowd. I looked out over the audience, let the silence stretch. Then I spoke again. "This isn't about revenge. This is about remembering. You can't heal from something you pretend never happened, and I refuse to disappear again." I stepped away from the mic. The MC didn't try to stop me. Neither did Clarissa. Naomi met me at the bottom of the stairs, breath caught in her throat. "You okay?" "Better than okay." The room behind us exploded in chatter, camera flashes now aimed at Clarissa, but no longer for the reasons she'd hoped. Outside, the night air felt different. Realer, lighter. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I walked. And this time, I wasn't walking away in silence. I was walking towards something that finally felt like truth. The morning after the gala, I sat alone in my apartment, watching the light shift through the blinds. It was early enough that the city hadn't fully awakened yet, the streets below just beginning to stir with the rhythm of routine. I hadn't cried. I hadn't laughed. I hadn't slept. But I felt clean, as if something had been cut loose from inside me, something that had been poisoning the well for too long. The headlines were already circulating. CEO Daphne Monroe exposes sister's fraud at charity gala. Clarissa Monroe's legacy in question after family bombshell. The real face behind the Monroe Foundation. I closed my laptop. I didn't need to read more. I'd already said what needed to be said. And I had no intention of dragging it further. Clarissa hadn't reached out. Not a word. I imagined her apartment, quiet for once. I imagined her watching herself unravel on every screen she used to chase. Her silence didn't surprise me. Clarissa had always been louder in the shadows than in the light. But now that the light was on, I no longer cared what she did with her darkness. I picked up my phone and dialed Naomi. "Hey," she answered quickly. "You okay?" "Yeah," I said. "I need you to transfer my assets. All of them." There was a pause. "Daphne, all of them?" "I want the Monroe inheritance moved into the education trust we set up last quarter. For girls who've aged out of foster care. We'll expand it. National, not just New York." "You're sure?" "Yes," I said. "I don't want it. I don't even want the dust from it." Naomi was quiet again, then said gently, "That's really big of you." "It's not big. It's necessary. That money's poisoned. I'd rather grow something else from it." "All right, I'll get the papers started." "One more thing," I added. "I want to close the media loop. One exclusive. No more interviews after." "Got it." I hung up and stared at the skyline. Somewhere, Clarissa was probably drafting her apology statement with a crisis PR team. Or maybe she wasn't. Maybe she still thought she could outweight the truth. But I wasn't here to wait anymore. A week later, the letter arrived. Not a formal statement, not typed. A small envelope, handwritten, no return address. Inside, 5 sentences, nothing more. "You won. I was never as strong as you. Maybe I never even wanted to be. You built something real. I only performed it. I'm sorry." There was no name, but I didn't need one. I folded the letter once, held it over a candle flame, and watched it curl into black. Not because I was angry, not because I hadn't wanted the apology, but because I didn't need it anymore. That weekend, I left the city. Not for a vacation, not for a reset. I left because I'd finally run out of reasons to stay. I bought a house upstate, old, overgrown, tucked between trees that didn't care who I was or what I'd done. The roof needed work. The floors creaked. But the silence inside didn't feel empty. It felt earned. I spent the first few days doing nothing. I cooked. I listened to old vinyl records. I learned to breathe again. One morning, I started digging out a small patch of dirt near the back fence. I wasn't sure what I was planting, maybe nothing, but the motion of turning the soil, of breaking ground, felt like a language I'd forgotten. Elijah called during one of those afternoons. "You disappeared on us," he said. "You okay?" "Yeah," I replied. "For once, I actually am." He chuckled. "Well, you left one hell of a storm behind. Clarissa's been dropped from 3 boards. The foundation's frozen. But that's not why I called." "Oh?" "There was a second voicemail on your mom's old drive. We missed it the first time." I froze. "You want it?" "Yes." A pause, then his voice lowered. "She mentioned the locket again. Said if you found it, maybe you'd believe she never gave up." I swallowed hard. "She didn't," I whispered. "No," he agreed. "She didn't. I didn't ask for the file. I didn't need to hear it. Not right now. It was enough to know it existed. Some things you don't need to replay. You just need to know they were real." A month passed quietly. No interviews, no photo shoots. Just coffee and earth, and a different kind of silence than the one I used to drown in. One afternoon, I found an old box of childhood photos in the attic. Most had been yellowed with time, but one stuck out. A Polaroid from a birthday party. Me in overalls, frosting on my chin, eyes bright. I laughed out loud. It wasn't a memory of pain. It was a reminder that joy existed, even back then. And it could exist again. The snow came early that year. It didn't fall with drama or warning, just drifted quietly down over the upstate trees like the world had exhaled. I watched it gather on the windowsill of the small kitchen, coffee warming my palms, the smell of cinnamon and cedarwood soft in the air. The garden had gone dormant, just skeletal branches and earth asleep under white. It had been 3 months since I moved. 3 months without press calls, meetings, or Clarissa's name spoken aloud. And for the first time in a very long time, I wasn't waiting for anything. Not an apology, not validation, not even closure. That's when Ethan showed up. He wasn't a stranger in the typical sense. We'd crossed paths at the local market once or twice. He ran the vet clinic in town, always alone, wore flannel-like armor, quiet but not distant. What brought him to my door that afternoon was a chicken, mine to be specific. "I think she broke her foot," he said, holding the bird in a soft towel like it was made of glass. I blinked at him. "I didn't even know she could leave the coop." He smirked. "Turns out she has opinions." I stepped aside to let him in. "So do I. She's in good company." That was the beginning, not of something dramatic, but of something still. He visited again the next week to check on her healing, then once more after that to help fix the hinge on my barn door. Eventually, he brought books, old poetry volumes, dog-eared and scribbled with notes in the margins. "I don't do small talk," he said one evening, handing me a copy of Mary Oliver. "Good," I replied. "Neither do I." We didn't talk about the news, about my name, about what happened in the city. It was like he didn't need the story to see the person. I think that's what made me trust him. One night, as we sipped bourbon on the porch wrapped in blankets, he finally asked, "What made you come here?" I looked at the stars, sharp and cold above us. I wanted to find out who I was without needing to be against someone else. He nodded once, slowly. "And I think I'm someone who's still learning how to be quiet without being erased." His gaze held mine. "You're very much not erased." There was no kiss that night, no sweeping gesture, just the warmth of a hand resting gently on mine. It was the first time a touch didn't make me brace for a story I didn't ask to tell. Weeks passed. We started a small project together, clearing out a patch of land behind the house to build what he jokingly called Vesper's Garden. I liked the name. It reminded me of dusk, of softness after fire. "What will you plant?" he asked, knee-deep in dirt. "Something stubborn, wild, but beautiful when it blooms." "You just described yourself." I laughed, and it didn't catch in my throat. Spring crept in slowly. The snow melted, revealing new green in places I thought were dead. Inside me, too. One day, while sorting through the last box from my old apartment, I found the tiny silver chain from the locket my mother had hidden. I'd kept it in a velvet pouch, untouched. I walked it out to the garden and buried it beneath the first row of lavender. Letting go is a practice. Some days, I'm better at it than others. Some days, I write letters I never send. I plant things with names I can't pronounce. I memorize poems that don't rhyme. I learn what peace feels like when you don't need it to prove anything. And on the best days, I just sit with Ethan, in silence, in stillness, with nothing to run from and no one to perform for. He never asks what happened before I got here, and I never ask what he lost when his wife died 3 winters ago. But in the way we breathe near each other, in the way we exist without explanation, I think we say enough. Some kinds of love don't announce themselves, they just arrive and stay. The air in the valley changed that morning. There was something different about it. Crisp, but not cold, like the season wasn't quite ready to commit to spring. The garden stretched beneath my kitchen window, still asleep under winter's fingers, yet breathing. And for once, I didn't feel the pull of elsewhere. My body didn't ache for escape, for battle, or for proof. It just was. I had started writing letters again, not to anyone in particular, not with any plan to send them. I just wrote. They were to people I remembered from long ago, to my younger self, to my mother, even to Clarissa. They weren't angry or desperate or noble, just honest. One afternoon, I wrote one more. And this one wasn't to the past. It was to whoever needed it next. I printed it, folded it by hand, and mailed a single copy to Naomi with a note. If it ever feels like someone needs to read this, let them. The letter began like this. Dear you, if you're holding this, you probably know something about erasure. Maybe not in the way I do. Maybe you weren't locked out of your home by your own blood or forgotten in court records. Maybe your wounds were quieter, less visible. But I'm guessing they left scars all the same. This is not a story of revenge. It's not even a story of justice. It's a story about remembering yourself after the world convinced you that you didn't exist. I used to think healing meant confrontation, exposure, proving the truth loud enough so no one could deny it. And sometimes it does. But mostly, healing looks like this. Silence that doesn't hurt. Peace that doesn't have to be earned. Love that doesn't ask for your worst day as collateral. So if you've ever felt erased, let me say this clearly. You were never the one who disappeared. They just stopped looking. But you were always here. Still are. Still brilliant. Still worthy. Still you. Hold that. Daphne, the day I sent the letter, I finally opened the second voicemail from my mother. I didn't do it in a ceremony. No candles, no tears. Just headphones and a quiet room. Her voice was weaker this time. I don't know if this will reach you. I hope it does. I hope you know I never wanted it to happen this way. I hope you find your peace. I hope you forgive me. I love you. That's all. That's always been all. I sat in the stillness afterward, not broken, not even shaken, just full. It's strange what you learn to live without. And stranger still when you realize it's safe to let yourself have it again. Naomi came to visit a few weeks later. She walked into the garden with boots and a grin and a bottle of wine. I heard from 3 women who read your letter, she said. They're starting something. A digital network. Resource sharing. Safe housing. My eyebrows rose. From one letter? Naomi just looked at me. You've always been more than one letter, Daph. Ethan read the letter one night too. He didn't say much afterward. Just turned to me, touched my cheek, and said, That's the woman I've been sitting beside. And it felt more real than any award speech I'd ever given. The final twist of this story isn't dramatic. It isn't Clarissa apologizing on national television. It's not some courtroom redemption or a viral video. It's me, in the back of my garden, planting a row of tulips while the wind stirs the branches above. It's me opening the front door to a neighbor who needs help fixing her car. It's me laughing over burnt cookies and dirty hands. It's me not thinking of revenge anymore because there's no space left for it in a life this full. Sometimes the hardest truth to face is that healing doesn't come wrapped in justice. It arrives quietly, in your own decision to stop waiting for someone else to set you free. If there's one thing I've learned through all of this, it's that peace isn't about forgetting what hurt you. It's about remembering who you were before the pain convinced you that you were small. You are not your trauma. You are the roots you grew after, the strength you chose in silence. So let me ask you, what have you walked away from, not out of weakness, but out of strength? Have you ever been the forgotten one? Or maybe the one who had to forgive without ever hearing sorry? If this story spoke to you, drop a comment. Let me know where you're watching from. If it didn't, tell me why. I'm always listening. And if this found your heart at the right time, make sure to subscribe because more stories are coming, and you might just see yourself in one of them.